Thanks for joining us. Welcome. I am Cheerleader, motivational speaker, success and business coach, author, MC, and the founder and CEO of Inspiring Greatness Inc., the place where we encourage you to write your own destiny. Now, I'm very excited about starting this, my brand new YouTube channel. So I'm excited, super excited about it. And to start off the channel, what I want to do is to give you an insight as to who I am, a bit about my story, and later on get into showing you some of the things that I wish to share with you on this channel. So let us not delay any further. Let's jump into my business. Let's go. Okay, so I want you to get the opportunity to learn a little bit about me, who I am, and the value that I'll be able to bring on this YouTube channel. Now, I know there are a number of persons who are not necessarily living the lives that they want to live, but I hope that at the end of this video, you will be inspired and motivated to continue working towards your personal dreams and to never quit and to give up on yourself and on your dreams, because believe me, I know that it is possible, right? And it is a journey, it is sometimes a struggle, but it is certainly possible. So for me personally, I grew up with my parents, my mother and father, and my brother and sister. Now, I grew up in Westmoreland, Jamaica, in a little community. Now, my parents were what you would call hustlers, right? They didn't have the average kinds of jobs. My father, he would do craft work, and he would make carvings and sell them in craft markets and different locations. And he would do other little stuff as well. And my mother, she was definitely a hustler. She did a number of things. She did domestic work, she raised chickens, sold in the market, you name it. Whatever it took to put food on the table, they would do it. Right? So growing up, I grew up in a very humble beginning. Right? My parents, the house we lived in was a house that was given to my parents by my grandparents, my grandmother. And can I tell you, the condition of the house was certainly not the best of things. Right? It was so bad that the roof, oh man, when it would rain, we had to get pots and pans, cups, you name it, and put in different locations of the house. It was very bad, right? It was a board structured house, and so the frame of the house was not in good conditions, and so animals and so would crawl through those areas and would come in, and so we would even be sleeping with little cats and puppies, little ones that could get through the cracks. And so the conditions were not the best. They were not ideal, but they were what they were, right? So growing up, like I said, my mother, she used to sell in the market. Now, don't ask me why, but I used to love going with her. I think I just used to love the idea of helping, knowing that I could be of some assistance to her. My brother would go as well, but he hated every bit of it. Right? I guess because he was older at the time when my mother was selling in the market. He was in high school. Oh, no high schooler wants to be caught in the market selling. Like that is not cute. And the boy wants to be looking fly. Like no, that was not happening for him in high school. But for me, I was in primary school at the time, and so for me, I guess it was exciting. Yeah, so let's call it that. So it was an exciting thing for me. But there is one thing from that time that I remember very strongly. In fact, it's one of my strongest memories of my mother. I don't remember exactly what was happening, but it seemed as though my parents were going through a very rough financial period. Something was happening. I was a child, so I don't know the details, but they needed money. It was a stressful time. And I remember one particular day going to the market with my mother, and she was just so, she was depressed. She was almost to tears, and I remember that day saying to my little self, I was in about grade 3 or 4 at the time, and I was saying to my little self, man, I'm going to sell so much today, I'm going to sell. I was a little seller, you know. And so when I got to the market, trust me, that day I went at it. I really poured it on. I poured in the work. I would not stop. Even my mother tried to stop me to have something to eat. I was at it. I was at it constantly. And then at the end of the day, when my little body could not go any bit more, right, I gave in to tiredness. And when I came and I took the monies out and I gave the monies to my mother, she started to cry. And she hugged me, and she hugged me with a hug. It was a hug of gratitude. It was a hug that said, thank you. You know, and to this day, that is one of my strongest memories of my mother and my childhood growing up. And getting older, I started to understand why that memory stood with me so much. But it was a very powerful memory for me. In high school, in primary school, like I said, I was a little seller. So I started my own little business at school. Right? So I started a little sweetie business. Now, I always have a knack for seeing an opportunity. Right? So while in primary school, there was this lady who came from overseas, and she brought back some unusual sweets. And so I went, I bought the sweets from her. I just discovered her somehow when I bought the sweets for myself, went back to school, and everybody wanted them. Now, when everybody wanted them, I said, And so I went, I got them, because not much person knew about her, I got them, took them back to school. They sold like happy. They were just selling. So in no time the lady was out of sweets because I bought all of them. And when she was out of goods, of course I can't allow my business to just fall short. So I had to start selling local sweeties. Now what I did as well is that I also went out and got the other students to help me sell. Now I think I had persons from all of the other classes, all of the other grades rather, selling with me, or selling for me, and I would pay them, what was it, one sweetie? No, I know this sounds bad. I was a child, right? So in my little mind, paying them with a sweetie felt like I was paying them, you know what I mean? But I was just giving them, I don't know. It was a bad gesture, but you know, nonetheless, the team was motivated and we sold like crazy. I was making thousands and thousands of dollars, right? When I say I was making money, I was making money, right? And I didn't really need the money for anything. I just loved the idea of doing my own little business and saying I love the business. It was just a good feeling for me. In grade 6 now, I got this little book. This is a crayon book, and I got some crayons along with it. And I took it to school. I got it as a gift. And when I took it to school, I noticed that everybody wanted to crayon in my crayon book. So what I didn't know is that I said, this is an opportunity, right? And so I started to sell crayon in my crayon book. So persons were paying me 20, 30, even more, depending on the demand for a particular picture, right? So like I said, I was making quite a bit. And that book had over 200 and something pages. It was a big book, right? And I made quite a bit of money from that. Now, another day that stood out for me is one of the days I got home. Because I would save quite a bit. So I would make my money, take it home, save it, have it in this container, check it every day. I would just check the money. I wasn't really doing anything. The money was just growing, and I was reinvesting and making the business bigger, and the money was growing, and I would just check it every day. It was like joy to me, right? But one day I got home and I picked up my container. When I felt it, the weight of it felt very unusual. When I opened it, it was totally empty. Like, absolutely zero. Like, when I said nil, of course, I started to cry. I was very, very upset. I thought it was my sister. Sis, if you're watching this, girl, I thought you were guilty. Right? So I thought it was my sister. Of course, I was ready for the fight. You know, I was ready to knock her down because I was very sure she was the culprit. Now, a little after, my mother got home and she came out of a taxi. I ran outside crying profusely, telling her, mommy, somebody stole my money. And in the middle of it, a matter of fact, I could hardly talk, so she could hardly hear me, but she already knew what was happening. So she stopped me and she told me she was the one that took the money. And then she pointed to the ground and she showed me feedings and chicken and all sorts of stuff. So she took the money to help her start her chicken business. And when she told me that it was her, I stopped crying and I felt a sense of joy. I was happy that I was able to have helped my family in some way. And now that I'm older, looking back, I realized that the desire to be there for my family had started bubbling from that time. I had that desire to want to help and to assist my family. You know, moving forward from there, I went off to high school. Matter of fact, going off to high school was not a happy experience for me because I ended up passing for technical high school and actually wanted to go to school with my older brother. He was like my hero, right? I would follow him everywhere, wanted to be just like him, that kind of a thing. You know, and so when I didn't pass for his high school, I was devastated. I had two schools in mind. His was one, but I didn't get any of the two. And so going to Froome, I cried for weeks, but God was in the midst, He was working. Right, so I went off to Froome. I was an average student, maintained being average all the way up to grade 9. But in grade 9, something happened. Right, I started hanging out with some young ladies who were they were 2 years ahead of me. And so I started hanging out with them, and the language that they were speaking was totally different from the language, you know, that was being spoken around me. They were talking about examinations and preparations and doing well in exams. They were preparing for their final exams to leave. They were preparing for CXC. So they were talking different language from my classmates and my little friends. And they started asking if I was studying. A matter of fact, when they asked that question, I just used to nod my head. Because really, I didn't really know what that studying thing was. I would hear people talk about the studying thing, but I've never really fully understood it. But spending time with these young ladies, I could now see what they call studying. You know, it was simple, them just reading through their stuff and asking themselves questions and that kind of thing. So I started to pick up what the studying thing was. And so I started doing a little bit of it. And in grade 9, I surprised myself and came in the 5th position, little old me. Oh, I can't begin to tell you how excited I was about that. And that one experience right there just changed everything like that. Because what happened is that I started to believe that, hey, I'm pretty smart, you know, I can do this. And it's the belief, it's the change in belief that led me to now start doing the things that smart people do. And I actually started studying. Fast forward, I ended up graduating from high school as the top overall achiever, right, for that academic year. I also got a national award that year and stood amongst the smartest persons in all of Jamaica for that academic year. So that was absolutely amazing. That was a great accomplishment. You know, and what was so phenomenal is that the persons I was envied, because yes, you know, you have some envy when the other people get to go to the high school that you didn't want, that you wanted to go. You know, so the persons I was envied, a great deal of them, if not all of them, I surpassed them at the end of high school. So that was very, very amazing. You know, and at that time I really started to realize that, hey, if you put your mind to something, you know, you can do it. And that thought that if you put your mind to something, you know, you can really do stuff. And things really started to transition for me in terms of my thought life and how I thought about myself. Really started to transition from there. But a whole lot of other changes happened after that. Went off to college, then after college I went off to university. Now, when I got to UWI, because I went to the University of the West Indies, when I got to UWI, I totally had forgotten that my family was poor, you know. Yeah man, I forgot that I was from a poor family, right? Didn't even apply for a student loan or anything. I just delved straight into university. I applied, of course, got through, everything was good, you know. But what happened when I got to UWI is that my family didn't have the money, right? When it got time for exams, there was no money to pay for the tuition. That was quite something, right? The rent was more expensive in Kingston. Everything was just more expensive than when I was at college, because I was away at Knox College from home, but it was not as expensive as being in Kingston. And so unfortunately, I had to pull out of school. Let's not say drop out, but I had to pull out for a period because I just didn't have the money. Now, that was a devastating experience in itself, right? I felt defeated. And not just that, but my mother, who was the main breadwinner for the family, she was in Cayman at the time and she had to return back home to Jamaica. And so the main source of money was not going to be significantly reduced. So that was another big blow. So let me use the word drop out because I feel more painful. So I had to drop out of school, right? And then my mother now having to come home, so the family financial situation is very, very bad, right? I was also in my first relationship and it was now getting not so good, right? So what started out as beautiful and amazing started to become something of sorrow and depression, and you know what I'm talking about. Right? You've probably been there, right? And so I was experiencing my very first heartbreak, right? And that was a devastating period as well. So with me being out of school, dropping out of school, that alone in itself was a very, very defeating thing for me, right? Because I had so many hopes and dreams just clutched onto that. I had my identity wrapped up in that at that time. So that was major devastation. My mother now being out of work, and so definitely serious financial crisis. And then my heart ripping out in that period as well. Oh! You don't want to go back to that time in my life because it was not pretty. But I thought it could not get any worse. So I thought. Little did I know that I would now discover that I was also pregnant. No. I cannot begin to express what those emotions were like, what that period of my life was like. It was a very, very rough time. It was a very, very rough time. Well, fast forward. I gave birth to an amazing son. His name is Romarian. And got home with Romarian. I was still living with my parents. And so we got home and I didn't know anything about babies. I've never been around babies. I've never had to take care of anybody's baby. Children, babies were just not in my life any at all. And so I was a total novice. When I say novice, I mean I didn't know anything. So in my lack of knowledge, when I went baby shopping, I bought one pack of newborn Pampers. You know, those are little ones when baby just give birth to a child. And then I bought another pack. But the other pack was one, let's just say that one could fit a 3-4-year-old child. Don't ask me why I never thought about size. The very thought of it was just oblivious to me. I just went and picked up whatever without thinking about size. Hello, I was a novice now. I did not know what I was doing. I had no business having a child, right? So I really didn't know anything. Nonetheless, all of that happened. So here I am home, And a few days after getting home, the newborn pampers are finished. So this is when I am discovering that the other pampers are way, not even just a little bit, but they are now way too big for Mario, right? And if you see my size, I'm quite small, his father is small, the child is going to be small too, right? And so Mario was very small, right? And so these pampers definitely could not fit him. This now required that I would need to purchase pampers. But here is a situation. I did not have the first cent, the first penny to put towards buying the pampers. No, that day was a very life-changing, it was a life-changing day. I remember going outside. My mother had a chicken coop. She still had a chicken coop. I remember going outside and just kneeling behind the chicken coop. And I cried and I cried and I cried and I cried for hours. And I cried because I'd failed my mother. And I love my mother. And I get emotional every time I tell this story, and I tell this story in seminars. I can't help but get emotional. My mother is so much to me. And I had failed her. You know, she was expecting that I was going to be doing a whole lot more with my life at that point, and she was investing in me, and it wasn't good. And so I failed my mother. I was definitely failing my newborn child because he didn't deserve this. He was no less than a week old. And here I was not even being able to buy him pampers. And I failed myself. I cannot tell you. You would probably have to have an experience like this to really understand the feeling associated with something like this. But I cannot tell you in words what that felt like. To be in a position like that where you're not able to provide for your child and you're not able to stand up to the responsibilities and also let down one of the most important persons for yourself and even let down yourself as a person. That was a devastating experience. That day was the worst day of my life. It was the absolute worst day of my life. But guess what? That day was also the best day of my life. Because it is on that very day, in that very experience, that I decided that I was going to be somebody. I decided that I was going to be a multi-millionaire. I decided I was going to make my mother so proud of me that my name would just bring joy to her heart because that was a big deal for me. And that day I decided that money should not be a problem in my future. That I was going to create an exceptional life for my family. So that day became the day when I made that decision. Now, I made a decision, yes, but I certainly did not know how. How was I going to do any of this? I couldn't buy Pampers, you know what I mean? So how was I going to now become a multi-millionaire? So it was just a thought. It was a desire, a very, very intense desire that I had. And it started to grow and it started to fester. And I allowed it to linger there. In that time, the only way I knew that people could earn money is if they go to school. You know, we learn, we go to school and get a good education, right? I have upgraded that belief system because of experience and because of increased knowledge. But that's what I knew at the time, and that is still what a number of persons know, right? And certainly I'm not bashing that, but it is all I knew at the time, and so it is what I did. I decided I was going to go back to school. Now, I didn't have the first penny, so I didn't know how I was going to go back to UAE. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I made up my mind that day that I was going to transition my life, and the only way I could think about was going back to school. So that was a definite must for me, right? And so the decision was made. Didn't know the how, but the decision made. Now I started thinking, what can I do? What can I do? And I was at home, and a friend of my mother came to visit her, and he was asking, a matter of fact, he came on purpose because he came asking for her to buy one of his tag drives or donate to his church building fund. He was building up his church, and so he wanted a bit of resources. And when I saw that, something went off in my head, ding, 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 and I said, opportunity. I said, I can do that, right? The same time I saw it, I went right ahead and made the tag drives, right? The same evening, right, I made the tag drives. It was too late for me to go out and print them, and I didn't have a printer. So the next morning, bright and early, I went out, I printed the tag drives, and bam, that day, I was out on the road, approaching everybody about my tag drive, right? And this now was my back to school fund, you know what I mean? Right? And so I was at it. And that day I made over $10,000. The next day I made over $10,000. The next day it was like that. Right, and I then decided, all right, I'm going to put on a fun day event. So it would be a fun day and a dinner event, and I did that on my housing scheme. Now at that time, if you look at me now, I want to call nice and petite, but that time I was what Jamaicans call marble. Now if you are not Jamaican and you're watching this, when you are slim or petite in Jamaica, Jamaican people say that you are marble. Right, so I was what you would call marble, and trust me, I was very marble, like marble. I was literally stick and bone because I was so heavily stressed. The stress was just so much in my life at that period. I was just not coping very well, so I was very slim, and I was underweight, as a matter of fact. And I would, once I got going with the fun day event, I would go out every day, like by noon. I was out, rain or shine, right? And in Jamaica, if you are Jamaican and you're watching this, you know what the Jamaican sun is like. It is brutal. It is brutal. And worse, that was in the summer period, right? Because I was going to be going back in September. So all of this was happening in the summer period. And man, the sun was crazy. So little on me, about 80-something pounds at the time, right, in this hot, broiling sun. I was from house to house, door to door, and then I decided that I was going to also extend it and move into the town, which was Sablamar, right? And so I went into Sablamar, went to all of the offices, right, sold the tickets there as well. And what I was doing too, when I went to the office, I wanted to see the manager, right, because I wanted the opportunity to get to everybody. Don't ask me, but yes, I'm bold like that. Right, and so when I went there, I'm asking for manager, and usually what you ask for is what you get, and so I get the chance to speak with the manager. They gave me the opportunity to speak with the rest of the staff, and so I sold hundreds and hundreds. When I say hundreds of tickets, I sold a lot of tickets. On the day of the event, the workload was so much that the workers, they couldn't manage it. Right, I had about 6 or so persons helping me in the kitchen, and other persons with the bounce about and the delivery and all sort of stuff. But the kitchen could not manage. It was just too much. And so what I even had to do, that I had to call some other business places and reschedule to do the dinner, to deliver the dinner for them on a different day. And so that is what I ended up doing. And so I brought their food a different day. But the workload that day was just mega crazy. Right, and so I made some amount of money, enough money to bring me to school and last for a little bit. So that's how I was able to, to get going and start back at school. And while at school, of course, you still need to be making some money. So grew up in a hustler type family, so of course I guess on a hustler type mentality. That means I was selling underwear, selling shoes, selling clothes, selling yam. Oh my God, that yam experience, I would have to travel to Trelawney, where I bought the yams. And I'd buy the yams in Trelawney and then get them delivered to Westmoreland. No, I ended up sleeping in Montego Bay in those delivery trucks. You know those market trucks that they have that deliver stuff? I ended up sleeping in those trucks twice in Montego Bay, in the Montego Bay market, and man, that was a very scary experience because I had a number of mentally ill people just roaming about the place and they're just not sure what is going to happen. So I hadn't set my eyes, I was half looking, just kind of all over the place, just trying to look out. It was a very scary experience, and so I'm very grateful that God kept me during those times because trust me, any game could have played, But there was this one particular time when I had over 700 pounds of yams, and I took it to Negril. Now, I'm not sure if you know Negril, but there's this square, and I brought my yam and placed it around that area, where the square, within the square, around that little roundabout. And that is an area where nobody should be selling. It is not permitted at all. But I was big and bold enough. Don't ask me why I do some things I do, but I do them. But I went, I had my yams, and trust me, I was selling. Oh man, I was selling. Trust me, I am a little seller. So I was selling, nobody could pass. And the people were buying. It was good quality yam, right? And the price was pretty good, so it was selling. In about midday or so, I saw some of the other vendors ahead of me. Some people jump in their cars and people just packing up stuff and leaving. So I knew what that meant. That meant the po-po. Oh. Now I am there with hundreds of pounds of yams. Again, little old me, of course, I can't manage 50 pounds, much less all of that, right? So I can't move it. So, I was preparing myself. So when they got to me, one of the young men, apparently, he knew me, I knew him too. He was one of the police officers. I was lucky. He said, "Oh, Miss Vassal, I see you're doing nothing, man." And I said, "Yes, man, I know I'm trying to do my thing, trying to make a little money for school." And he said, "All right, go on, do your thing, Miss Vassal, just try to do it fast, And I said, "All right." And so, I was unharmed. Continue doing my business, selling, I'm having a good time, selling, and I'm doing my thing. A little while later, here comes the po-pos again, right? So the police officers came again, but this time, unfortunately, I don't know anybody this time. So you know what they're going to do? They're going to ask me to remove them or they're going to take them. I was lucky that they didn't confiscate the stuff, but they said I definitely needed to have them removed right away. Boy, defeat. I laugh about these things now, but these are very painful experiences. Very painful experiences. I had to sell that yam, I had invested every penny I had in that yam. I needed the money for my rent, and I needed to survive for a little while longer, and I needed money for my son, right? Because at this point I'm a single mother, right? And so I needed to provide for Romarian as well. So man, I needed this money and I needed this money bad. It was not a little bit of need, it was a significant need, So when all of that was happening, I had to bite my lips to try and hold back the tears. I had to read, and the tears still flowed even when I was trying to do that. But luckily, my brother was in the town, and so I called him, and he came and he picked up the stuff for me. And then about 2 weeks or so before that, I had met this man, Mr. Spain. God bless you, Mr. Spain. Mr. Spain was in charge of taking care of this this plaza in the town, and there was an empty space there, and he said, you know, you can put your stuff in there, you know, and I was so grateful. So there was an upstairs empty space, and so I was able to place the yams up there. Now, I was very grateful. Still am, Mr. Spain, very grateful. Not sure if you use social media, but sending out a lot of blessings to me, really saved my life that day. Right? And so what I had to do is that I had to put some of the yams in what we call a crocus bag. And I put the yams in a crocus bag, and then I would drag them a little bit down the stairs, right? And I would hide behind this little shop thing and call over the customers, because remember, I have to sell these yams. I have to sell these yams, right? So I'm trying to hide from the police, trying to call customers, right? And then I'm getting some very negative, not so good looking kind of stares from the other vendors. So I'm trying to avoid them too. So it's a whole mix of things going on. Luckily, at the end of the first day, I sold out almost all of the yam. I had probably about 100 and something pounds left. And then the next day, I went back and I sold out the rest of the yam, and I was good to go, right? I had money for rent, I had money for food, and I had money for Mariah. So when I think back on things like those are the things that motivate me to never quit. Now, sometimes you're going through negative stuff in your life and you are allowing those things to stop you. You need to put a twist on it. And you need to use those things for your motivation instead. Right? How you perceive the thing is what it is. Right? You have to perceive the things a little differently. Use those experiences as your fuel. And so those things became fuels for me. Right? I started my first business when I was in my second year at UWI. I had a business that had over 600 distributors in the business, right? Really started to invest in this business because I saw it going to, big heights. And remember now, I was very determined that I was going to create for myself that financial freedom. So when I got into this business, I was at it, and I went full in. When I say I went full into this business, I went full into the business, right? I even started pulling and pushing money into it, money that I did not have, right? And unfortunately, that business went under because the company, unfortunately, was not properly registered here in Jamaica. And so everything just went crazy for that, and that made a very big dip. Jumping out of that, of course, you have to keep going. Yes, you feel battered, you lose money, you're stressed out, but what are you going to do? You have to keep going, right? And so, kept going, got started with a second business after that. Good business, major opportunity, but something was just not coming together for me. It was just not coming together, right? I was not earning what I really wanted to earn. Got even more into debt, and it was something, I think for the most part, I was just not feeling very fulfilled, right? I did not feel like I was doing what I really wanted to do, and so a lot of the days I got up just feeling miserable, right? And going against even some of my own beliefs, but being held into it because of some of my beliefs, right? Which is a powerful thing. I was being held into it because I had this never quit, can't quit attitude, right? But I was also going against certain core beliefs because I know this is not how you're supposed to feel. I know you're supposed to feel at ease and peaceful, and so you're supposed to love what you do, right? And you're supposed to give from a deep, beautiful place. And that wasn't the case. That wasn't the case at the time. And so I know I needed a change, and there were just a lot of negative things happening in my life at that point as well, right? And I know I needed to make a transition. And then in 2018, a friend of mine passed away. And this was not just a friend. This was someone who we were like this at one point. We were peas in a pod. Anywhere you see her, you would see me. At one point of my life, we were like this, right? And she passed away at a very young age. She was only a few months older than myself. And something about that experience, to this day, there has never been another death that has impacted me like that. But her death, and I had also lost another friend that year as well before her, but her death did something to me. One of the things that it did too is that it really caused me to sit and think about my life. Now, though I was young, I really became conscious that this life thing was not so guaranteed. And so in the now, I needed to start doing things that I really wanted to do, and I really needed to start living. And I, more than anything else, needed to live my life purpose. I say all the time, if I have a biggest fear, that fear is that I don't live my life purpose. That fear is that I don't serve my generation. That verse in the Bible that speaks about David serving his generation, that has an immense impact on me. Like the concept of serving your generation is a big one in my mind. I do not want to leave this earth and not serve my generation and do what I am supposed to do. And so when she died, I really had to take a serious look at my life, and I really started to think I need to make a change. I need to change. And then the thing is, when you start thinking about things, it starts bringing in answers that you need. And if you think about things in a positive way, let me not just say think, but when you think on things from a positive, creative end, then it will help to make certain transitions. Now, I got back into really digging into the things that I had been studying for years, because for years ever since I started my very first business, I've been studying and reading, right? I got introduced to motivational speaking. First person I learned about was Les Brown, fell in love with him, fell in love with his story. And I just loved the energy, of being able to share with others and impact their lives. And when I saw him doing that, I said, that's what I want to do. That's the kind of impact I want to have on person's lives. So I knew what I wanted to do, but at the time I didn't believe I could do it. I didn't feel like I had enough experience. I didn't feel like I didn't feel like I was there, right? And so it was excuses at the time. Didn't look at it like that as excuses. I just felt like I was ready, which is what happens with a lot of persons. We wait for the time to be perfect, not recognizing and not really thinking there is no perfect time. Right? You just have to know what you want and take the little steps, as small as they are. But like I said, I was always studying, right? And as it is, I study on average minimum, like say 2 hours per day. I am up from 3 or 4 o'clock every morning, because that is my study time. And I'm studying and I'm studying through the day as well, right? I'm very sure that after this video, right, after I wrap up today, and today is going to be a full day for me, I'm going to go home and I'm going to study. Right? Because I am committed. I'm committed to being one of the best. I'm committed to serving my generation. Right? And so I always say I was in a period of preparation. I started to use what I was learning. So there's a big difference between knowledge and implementation, or knowledge and transition. Right? A lot of people are learning, but you're not transitioning because you're not implementing. I was one of those persons. I was just not implementing much of what I was learning. And so I got serious about it, right? And that's why they said when the student is ready, right, the teacher will appear. So the teachers were there, the mentors, the books, the videos, they were there, but I wasn't using it as I should have. And so I really started to use it. I love to say I started to bombard my subconscious mind. I really started to beat at it. Right, using tools that I'm going to show you on this YouTube channel, right? So definitely keep tuned. Make sure if you haven't done it already, to like and subscribe, and to definitely share this video, right? But I really started to bombard my mind, right? Bombard my subconscious and to feed it with what I wanted. And it's amazing how quickly these things work when you use them right. It's amazing, very amazing, because what happened for me, after I started hitting my subconscious mind seriously and really, really, imbibing on what I really wanted. And I started to really get that fixed in my mind and focus on that and writing my goals and you name it, using the tools that I needed to use, right? What happened is that the changes just started to happen, just gradually, right? The first thing that happened is that I got a call from this man who said he got my number from my older brother and he wants me to MC events at a school for him. Now, I've been MCing similar events for years, and so I always say that whenever I have a microphone, right, I'm pretty much in heaven. That's how I feel. When I have a microphone and in front of an audience sharing and teaching, I feel like I'm in my own piece of heaven. And so of course, I want to be in heaven at all times. And so when he called me, it was a definite yes. I just said to him, let me double check something regarding the date and I'll get back to you. And that's what I did. And we ended up making that happen. When I went to the school, we had an amazing time. I ended up being the MC and the guest speaker for the day, doing both of them. We had a good time, as we usually do when I go to events. Got the chance to share and to inspire the teachers and the students and the parents, which was very, very amazing. But at the end of it, the principal invited me to her office and she gave me a little envelope. Now, usually when I do anything like this, like graduations or anything with the schools, they usually give you something like gift baskets or small little gifts, tokens. And so when she gave me the envelope, my expectation was that it had something like a thank you card or something. So when I took it, I thanked her and we spoke a little bit and then I left. When I got home, I just placed it on a table and I went about doing my business. It was late in that night when I took it up, opened it just to read my thank you note and stuff. And just to read for read's sake. And so when I took it out, yes, there was a thank you card, but to my surprise, there was also what? Cash money, right? And I said, now isn't that interesting? A little idea started to tingle, but I said, but anything else? I said, that's interesting, right? About a week and something after that, I was the MC for another graduation. And at that graduation, I usually do that graduation. I've been doing that graduation for about 4 or 5 years now. So I know what they usually get me. But this year, they didn't get me their usual gift. They too gave me a little envelope. Right, and again, I was expecting a nice thank you card or something. But when I got home, I wasn't so hasty just the same to open it. Left it for a little while, went back, opened it, and what did I find? You know what I mean? More cash money. There was a ding, 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 ding moment, light bulb moment. I said, there is a business to this. Right? And when I started playing around with the idea, that day, I decided that I was going to now become a professional MC. So, on making that decision, there's one thing that I love about myself, and it's that I'm an action person. Once I make a decision, I'm going to do it. Right? I'm going to start taking the action. So that is always something I love about myself. So that day when I said, alright, I am now a professional MC. I made this little card, I made it myself, no professional now. I just did my own little thing, created my own little MC name, MC Chrissy Chris, right? So if you go on my Instagram page, that is what you'll see. If you go on my Facebook page, that is what you see. Because that is how I started promoting myself. I started promoting myself as an MC. And man, can I tell you, in the very week of having done that, the same week, somebody out of the blue called me and said, Chris, you do MC? And I said, absolutely, positively, yes, girl. And she said, wonderful, because I need an MC. Now, we discussed it. I said, girl, you have your MC. Now, she asked me now, so Chris, how much do you charge? Hear me now. I was like, well, usually, right now it's kind of sticky, right? And we're talking Jamaican dollars, right? I'm doing the thing, I don't know what to price, I don't know what prices to ask for, right? But she said that, you know, she didn't have that much and yada yada, and I said, all right, we can work for, in fact, we can do it for 10, and she said, all right, your man, she can manage that. And I said, all right, let's go ahead and do it. So I did the event for her, I did her wedding. Now at the wedding, I must have done such an amazing job that sister decided she was going to double that money. Girl was excited, right? Got that money. But not only that, but the lady that was her wedding planner was there. And she saw me in action. And while I was on stage doing my thing, she was down there telling her workers that, man, you guys have to get that girl's number, you guys have to get her number, I have to work with her, right? So when I came down and I went into the kitchen because I had some food in the kitchen, right? Because I usually don't eat during an event, I usually eat after. I just try to maintain my focus and just give excellence. Right? But at the end, I went to get the food and they told her I was going to come to get the food, so she was there waiting me in the kitchen. So when I got in there, she said to me, picnic! If you're not Jamaican, that means child, right? She said, picnic! Where you come from? Again, if you're not Jamaican, she's saying, where did you come from? Right? So she said, picnic, where you come from? We have to do some work together, right? You were exceptional. And she said to me, in all my 30 plus years of doing weddings, I have never in all that time seen an MC as good as you. And I was like, really? Don't tell me more, right? And it was just an absolutely amazing experience for me, right? And she, you know, she said, we have to do some work together. I said, definitely we must. Of course, I was not going to be saying no, right? But she said, definitely we have to, you know, we definitely do some work. I said, yes, we connected after that, and she sent work my way, and that's really how my business started. You know, she started sending, and I started learning about the other stuff and how to go about marketing. That's how it really started. But that I had created this vision for myself to be a motivational speaker. Now, this is how funny life is. Now, note, I was not planning at any time to be an MC at any point. Right? I thought that I would have started my business career as a motivational speaker. A matter of fact, the business that I did prior to this, I really went into that business because I said I could use that business as a platform to take me into motivational speaking instead of going after it directly. But I must say, I did make a little bit attempt to go after it directly, but man, that was devastating. I didn't share that part of the story, but nonetheless, that didn't work out. And so I said, let me use this as a platform to help to get me on that level, right? And so I always thought that I would just go straight into motivational speaking. Never thought about any other form of speaking, right? But this MCing thing got me on the stage more often. I was working on my skills, I was, you know, getting into it. No, you do not need to be perfect, you just need to start, right, and really start working on things. But whenever I decide I'm going to do something, I do my very best to do the best that I can do. And I never strive to just be one of the people, I always strive for excellence. And so when I decided I was going to be an MC, I went on Amazon and Scribbly and the different platforms that I used to read and study. And I read pretty much all I could find. I bought some of the resources so I could access for free, and I just gobbled up the knowledge. And so what I learned, plus from my own experiences, because remember I've been doing this thing for free for over 5 years, so I had my own experiences. So when I put all of that together, man, I became something. Yes, and so I was really able to deliver something more exceptional because I had experience, now I had a whole lot of knowledge and refined stuff, other people's experiences coming together and to put it together. So when I started that career, it was never the plan. It just sort of happened, and that's how the universe works. You do not know the how. People, when you set a goal, you are not going to know how it is going to happen. Just allow God to direct you, right? Allow Him to direct you because He's going to direct you. And so after I started MCing, I had always wanted to be a motivational speaker. And years ago, I had this idea in my head that, man, I really want to teach young people the things that I was learning. Because when I was in university, I said, why didn't anybody teach us these things? Right? How do we not know this? Like, how nobody not tell me this in Jamaican terms, that is, right? But if you're not Jamaican, I'm pretty much saying, why didn't anybody tell us this, right? So that's what I would say. Why didn't anybody tell us this? Why are we not taught these things? And it became a desire for me to want to pass these pieces of information, the stuff I was learning, that nobody else was teaching us, right? The things I wanted to very much pass these things about laws and different success principles. I wanted to pass these things to younger people. And I always had that in my mind that I wanted to create a program for the school system. And so somehow that just came back up. And it started to really fester. A matter of fact, in the years before, I had even thought about the name of it, the GEM program. Right? I had the name, I started putting some of the stuff together, but I just left it. But now was the time for it. Right? It is said that there is nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come. Right? And the time for the idea had come. Right? And so I was now actively working at it. And so I decided that I was going to get the program going. I got the program off the ground. Right? I got the program into the school system. And I just started making phone calls and things connect and things just started, and the pipes connected, right? And I got the program in the school system, saw what I needed to change, made some alterations and that kind of thing, right? Now, I know this program is going to take over all of Jamaica. Don't ask me how I know that, I know that. And it's going to transition from Jamaica to other Caribbean countries, and it's going to transition to the world. That's my vision for this program. Right? And so I started that program. But when I started that program, that led into other things. Because now, persons were now able to see what I was capable of. Right? And so when I went in and I was working with the children, principals started asking if I did seminars. And of course, Chris is not going to be backing down. I am ready for the work, I am ready for the challenge, I am ready for the growth. And so the opportunities just started to open up. That's how I started doing sessions, right? I started doing seminars, and then after that person started asking about coaching and stuff like that. And then I transitioned into coaching. All of it just happened, right? It just started. And then I started coaching persons one-on-one, right? And now group coaching and all sort of different stuff just started to come and play. Now, about roughly 3 months or so after starting my business, right, I was able to transition my income, my monthly income, to a daily income. It blew my mind, and it blew my mind because I really realized, man, this thing is extraordinary if you just use the things that you learn. If you not just learn them, but you apply them to your lives can transition. The very first time I saw myself make my monthly income in a day, I was like, oh my God. It was exceptional. I want that to happen for you. I want that to happen for every single one of you watching this video. Right? I want your lives to change. I want you to be living in your destiny. I want you to be living in your gift. That is what is happening for me. Right? And I'm just continuing to grow. I'm just continuing to expand. And the journey never stops until God takes you home. And until we are here, we have time to do what we need to do. Right? So that is pretty much my story, right? Where it is so far. You know, we're going to continue growing because I definitely intend on sharing the stage with some amazing persons. Bob Proctor, you are my #1 guy. I learned most of my stuff from you. Mr. Bob, when I tell you that I can share your content on a whole nother level, I have spent time in your content. I teach your content the way you teach it. I think I'm doing you proud, right? So I look forward to meeting you soon because you are one of my #1 guys, Mr. Bob Proctor. If you do not know Mr. Proctor, right, if you've never read anything that he's written, you definitely need to check out his stuff, check out his videos. He's absolutely phenomenal. I've learned so much from him. So a lot of the things I'm going to be sharing, even on this YouTube video, I learned it from him. Right? And then I have all amazing mentors, people like Les Brown, who of course was my first motivational speaker that I was introduced to. Lisa Nichols, oh my God, I love you because your story is very similar to my story. When I heard your story, I cried too because I felt it, because I lived it, right? And Tony Robbins. I intend to share this stage with all of you guys, every single one of you, all the names I just called, all of you are the people I intend to work with, right? And I'm not going to stop until I'm at that level where you are impacting the amount of lives that you are impacting. That's the dream for my life. But you watching, you all have a dream. You have a goal, and you definitely need to get in touch with that goal. Stay tuned with this YouTube channel. We are going to be sharing so much here. It's unbelievable. The content and the value that you're going to get. You can expect motivation, you can expect inspiration, but you're going to get content and tools that you can use to really make the transitions you need to make. So if you have not already done it, you definitely need to, I did, you need to like, subscribe, share, turn on that post notification, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Toodles. Until we meet again. Remember, go ahead and write your own destiny.